Hello and welcome to another Chess.com podcast. Today we're going to look at the Alekhine defence, and we're going to look at how to play the Alekhine, and we're going to go through a short miniature game which was Arnold versus Polgar, in which Arnold destroys Polgar for not knowing how to play this opening. But after you've watched this podcast, you'll know how to play the Alekhine. So for those who don't know, e4, knight f6, bishop c4, knight takes e4. Well, in fact, the Alekhine is simply just after bishop c4. It's kind of like the bishop's opening, but without e5 being played, knight f6. Now, it looks natural to take knight takes e4, and although you're going to lose this knight, it's not a bad way to play the opening if you don't know it. The bishop takes on f7 with check, king takes, queen comes to h5, and then what black should play in this position is g6. This forces the queen to come to e5, forking the knight and the king, and after e6, queen takes e4, and we get into the game really. I mean, obviously black's king's moved, or he can't castle, but white's queen's out in the open, and certainly with a timely d5, white's going to have to move this queen and cost some time there. So although this position, I would give it a slight advantage to white, it's certainly not one for either side. But this isn't what happened in the game. In the game, after the move queen to h5, black tried to hold on to the piece. Now, you can't do this. I've seen it happen quite a lot on the Chess.com live servers. And if the king comes to f6, then black is in for a hellish game. Let me demonstrate with the game Arnold versus Polgar. Well, in this position, Arnold played queen to f3 check, and now we see the black king's in real difficulty. The king can't retreat back to f7 because that's still being check, and if the king went to a square such as g6, then not only will the queen pick up the knight, but she picks up the knight with check. So black's still got problems to solve. In fact, black is almost forced into playing king takes e5, but now this is a one position for white. The correct move in this position is d4. Very aggressive, but what it does, it opens up lines for the light squared pieces, particularly the bishop, to come out. King takes d4, knight to e2. Notice how white develops his pieces with check. King to e5, bishop to f4, sorry, again developing with time, with tempi, with check, and the king goes back to e6. Seemingly now he's given up the ghost. Now white doesn't want to take on d4 in this e4 in this position, because the black king will be able to find an escape. Instead, knight to d4, a further check, and now we notice that f7 isn't open to the black king. For example, if the king went to f7, then bishop takes c7 check, a discovered check, costs a queen, and after the pieces come off the board, we see that white is a queen and a knight for two bishops. Easily won. So knight to d4 again forces the black king back into the centre. King to d5, knight to c3. A third piece developed with check. Every piece that the white player brings out has been developing with check. In fact, if we count the queen, that's 4 pieces. Each piece is developed with time. The king takes on d4, queen takes e4, king c5 is the only move and there are a number of mates in 2 here. I recommend you try and find them all, but the most eloquent and the one that happened in the game was bishop to e3 check, king to d6, castling long, and again we see another piece coming to the attack with check, but this time it's checkmate. A 13 move game and an absolutely wonderful example of how to develop your pieces with tempi. I hope you've enjoyed this Chess.com podcast.